So there is, as always, a lot of talk around how the trail arm moves in golf swings, and I, like a lot of other coaches, would believe it's very, very influential how the trail arm moves. Generally, can be a good indicator of how the player moves throughout the whole golf swing. The challenge really becomes how a player reacts to certain instructional language or certain guidance or cues. So this player on the left hand side had been told to keep that trail arm very much kind of close to their side, pinned to their side, head cover under the trail upper arm. And those things on their own can be very, very helpful, but they need to be sometimes guided so that the player doesn't, let's say, get off track or carry those intentions too far in a certain direction. So what we have is here on the player on the left hand side, our club golfer who has been instructed to keep that upper arm very much pinned to the side of the chest. Let's work into the backswing. We see the tracing of that trail elbow as the player moves back. And you can see as that player goes further into that backswing, how low that tracing is and how low that elbow is at that point in the backswing. So that's just this player reacting to the idea of keeping that elbow as close to their body as possible. Over on the right hand side, we have our PGA Tour player. We'll look at that trace from that right elbow as that player goes back. And you'll see quite a different tracing in terms of how that elbow has worked in the backswing. So a lot wider in the trace, a lot higher in the elbow position at that time, at that point in the golf swing, and a little bit further away from the body. Now, the idea that some might react to this visual image and say, well, the player on the left is more connected. Well, the arms are already connected to the shoulders. It's not like we need to pin the arms closer to the shoulders. And we need a little bit of separation to create a little bit momentum, a little bit more speed, a little bit more stretch throughout where the club is and between where the body is. So when you're looking at these two positions, yes, the one on the left hand side would be more in inverted commas connected because the upper arm is closer to the rib cage. However, that would be nearly too much. You'd nearly be delving into compression over here on the left hand side. And then really it's all about how the player reacts. So to look at one position at one point in time can be, like a little kind of eyesight into the swing, but it doesn't reveal the whole story. So really, Jen, looking at the player on the left hand side, let's look at the trace from here on out. So this will be the yellow trace as that left hip starts to work back towards target. We see that yellow trace of this right elbow. And where does the trace really start? Well, the trace actually works up. So ironically or paradoxically enough, the player actually then raises the elbow as the player starts in downswing to actually recreate some of the height that they were trying to negate in the backswing. So that elbow actually works up and out to start the downswing. We can see that little kind of graph, that little trace on the left hand side, while the player on the right hand side, again, our really elite player, moves very, very differently. So that trace now moves more down and in, so narrower, let's say you could use that phrase, than the trace on the way back. So we get down to roughly about that same position in downswing where that shaft will be about the same spot. And we can see a couple of differences here. Obviously, the overall trace, we can see nearly that inverted smile on the right hand side between the two graphs. The left hand side, that yellow line moving, very much moving out and away from the body. So, ironically, and again, this is just kind of the player reaction. The player on the left hand side has started with the intent of keeping that right elbow closer to their side. Don't let it get away. Keep the head cover underneath it. But in the end has actually moved the elbow further away in the transition because of that move in the downswing, because they've overly compressed in the backswing. The reaction has actually caused the opposite of what they were trying to do, while the player on the right hand side, maintaining some semblance of width through that right arm in the backswing, has actually narrowed that right arm, moved it closer to the body on the way down. And again, a little bit of this would be the actual translation. The lateral shift of the player would affect these graphs somewhat in terms of what you're seeing. However, again, on the left hand side, you see very, very different movement of that trail elbow. So as we work further down, when does the when does the yellow line, the downswing line, really meet up with where the elbow began? Not really to post or literally at impact. We see over on the right hand side, the elbow is nearly back in the same position it began when the shaft gets packed parallel in the downswing. So just some nice references to look at there too. But really the essence or the point to this video is the player has been told, encouraged to keep that trail elbow, that trail upper arm closer to their rib cage in the backswing to help for whatever reason we don't know, but to help in the end in the eyes of the coach. And it has completely the opposite effect. It has actually created more of a width, more of a separation in transition because of that overpinning of that right arm, because of those cues, those kind of languages used at the start of the session with the coach. So when you're looking at this, okay, yes, the idea, hey, I've created what I want in the backswing or in the certain move or the pattern, but look at the whole picture. How does the player react to these moves? Or you as the player, how do you react to the idea of doing this? To simply say, hey, you got to do this in backswing, that's it. it's not enough. You got to look at the corresponding effects and how that might then really influence impact, because it all comes back to impact at the end of the day. So, just again, looking at this player, the idea keep the elbow closer, keep the arm closer, has actually had the negative effect. While if you discuss that with the player and left them kind of maybe tweak the backswing a little bit, or even kind of show them a little bit of more backswing, you might have gotten an opposite reaction, something more similar to what we see over on the right hand side.